Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Walter.
7 o'clock, I'm not late.
You're
Really
never
close.
late, honey. It doesn't start till you come.
There you go.
Oh, how was everybody's August?
Good.
Hot.
Too fast.
Good. Well, fantastic. I'm really glad. Hopefully, folks got a break a little bit. I know a number of you were working on things through the August and I guess early September month. So thank you all for doing that as well. Jose, do you have the agenda to put up?
Yes, I just need to get the presenter role from Lisa in just a minute.
Okay. Well, once that goes up, we'll go ahead and get started. And before we look at the agenda, the idea for tonight's meeting is a little bit more of a process meeting in terms of working through how we get from where we are now to wrapping up the task force work. And there's the agenda. Okay, so does anyone have anything else they want to add to this agenda before we dive in? Okay, then let's just go ahead and dive in. And by the way, we may not need to go all the way to 9 o'clock tonight. Let's see where we are, since we are primarily talking about process and what needs to be done to wrap up. So we have scheduled 3 more task force dates through October. Those are on the screen and on the agenda. And hopefully those dates work for everybody. Any questions on that? Tammy.
Yes, please. Moira is trapped in attendees. Please let her into the meeting.
Right.
We can bring her up. Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome.
Okay. Then, well, Jose goes ahead and brings Moira up. I presume everybody remembers how to work in this this WebEx environment. But at any point, feel free to message Jose or put your hand up, and I can call on you. So with that in mind, let's go ahead. Jose, do you want to lead the group through the review of compiled sections?
Yeah, give me a second while I put up the document. I think we were going to leave it open-ended since we understand that there was an August break. I'm going to put up the document, but if any task force member or topic lead wanted to share any feedback with the task force, go ahead and raise your hand or mute and unmute.
I like that land use title up there on your bulletin board there, Jose.
Sometimes I forget what my responsibility is in the supervisor's office, so I need to be reminded. Yeah. Alrighty, so I'm going to share this table that everyone is kind of familiar with. You know, if any task force members kind of wanted to share any update or feedback for any section, it doesn't need to be a topic lead. Feel free to do so.
Jose, this is Bill Penniman.
Yeah,
just
go ahead,
on
Bill.
the energy and environment section, you list the July 31 version, which is the one that was the latest until we sent you one last
on Friday.
week. So there is one update. I'll just note that the July 31 update was significantly different in a number of specs from the earlier version. The most recent update, dated September 9, is pretty similar to July 31. Some changes, but mostly it's the addition of maps and pictures.
Thank you, Bill. And this is the compiled section that I sent out the first week of August before the break. So this all these dates may be wrong. So apologies for that. Thank you for catching that, Bill.
Thank you.
If I could, let me see if I can remember how to raise my hand. Okay, I'm raising my hand.
I see it. I see it.
That'll work.
I did want to update the task force to let everyone know that Commissioner Carter and I do have a meeting planned on Friday with staff to go through the land use chapter. So I trust that we'll have some confirmation and clarification on some items, and then also get some of these maps updated. So that's my update.
I have a comment.
Thank you, Lynn. Yes, Tim.
I would like to ask the group, the whole task force, I have an iteration of planning principles that has 11, but I think we had 12. Does anybody have that latest one that has more comments on it? More than, I mean, it was 10, then it was 11. I think we got up to 12, or we're debating it. Does anybody have a copy of that? And that can be just open-ended. If you have it, please send it to the group.
Tammy, I'm not sure, but I do recall that at a certain point later in the process on that, we did add diversity and equity, didn't we?
Right, and we were fraught trying to stay at 10, and then we decided, no, we have to have 11. But I think we might have had an extra one, and I think diversity and equity were in the same one. So, and if they weren't, that's where 12 is. But I just wondered if anybody else had writing on it. I have writing on it and changes up to 11, but I don't have 12. And something in my mind tells me we went to 12. So we're trying to get that figured out so it can be perfected. Thank you.
I think that the 12, I'm going to go back and look
Michelle, your speaker is cutting in and out. We can't hear you.
if I have any writing on it.
Michelle, can you repeat? Because at least at mine, you were very static. I couldn't hear you. I mean, I knew you were speaking, but it wasn't clear.
I think it may be a bandwidth issue.
Maybe she can send it to everybody.
Yeah, Tammy, the last iteration that I have of the planning principles was from
Hear me?
September
I
the
think I'll go
2nd.
see if I
And that was for a September 14th task force discussion update.
So, Jose, does anyone else have more updates, or are we waiting for Michelle?
I was waiting for Michelle, but if we can come back to her, we wanted to hear from someone else. think I heard Commissioner Carter, but I think I was just muting on muting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was it.
I think Michelle's
Supervisor.
coming in with another, Michelle's logging in, looks like with another login. Maybe we'll be able to hear her now.
Sorry about that, everyone. I hope you
There we go.
can hear me. Okay. Again, apologies, but I think number 12 was community health. I'm going to go back and just check through my emails and see if I can find anything.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any updates they want to talk about right now?
Supervisor, this is Chris Daniel. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Chris.
Hi. I don't want to give too much of a lengthy update. I just want to let everyone know that during the recess, the Reston appointee for the History Commission also took a look at my section, and she had only some minor editorial comments. Otherwise, there was not much more, just clarification on specific items. And I think the only other thing that maybe Michelle, you want to talk about it too, because I don't know if that made it into this section, looking at the date. So Michelle and I kind of provided some revisions on the equity section prior to us going into recess. And I don't know if that revised section made it into this version that's here now, but we tried to, we were just massaging the language a bit more, I would say. But I don't, looking at that date, Michelle, I think that's our older date, isn't it? Or is that the new?
That's the older date. I checked with Jose, and I think we're going to get the new version circulated very soon.
And
Yeah.
I guess
Thank you, Michelle.
I'll co-op something that Michelle could talk about, I suppose. Michelle just shared me some of her community health text, and I'm going to share my input to her on that in the coming days.
Yes, that's correct. We have a more filled out community health chapter, and so we look forward to sharing that with you very shortly.
The other thing
Thank
that
you,
I
Michelle and
want
Chris.
to bring up is the Pine Crest Glade Working Group white paper that I believe John Mooney he sent it to everybody on the task force recently. And we have been talking about improvements for the intersection of Glade and Pinecrest, adding three-way stop signs, rectangular rapid flashing beacon, a island like on Soapstone at bridge heights if feasible, and high visibility crosswalks to all three legs of the intersection. The thing is, the kids are walking from Southgate Community Center straight across, and there is no crosswalk there. The crosswalks are at the end, but the kids aren't going to the end to use them. So we have been concerned about having a crosswalk there, and since they're already using it and having it safely done. There is an area that is where a lot of cars are parked. They are on Glade and Pinecrest, but to the left. And we have already, I've noticed an improvement there. They were talking about placing concrete bollards to block out the bump out and extend the curb along Glade Drive to block the bump out. And they would like to extend the existing RE path to the sidewalk area to assure ADA access. The Glade Drive extend no parking area the southwest corner of Glade and Pinecrest to increase pedestrian visibility. Allow parking on the southeast side of Glade Street to make up for the removed parking. Pinecrest Road itself, add mid-block crosswalk, we talked about that. also adding speed bumps, add sidewalks so there are complete sidewalks on both sides of Glade. These are recommendations from that. Public art, incorporate public art in this space. The space that they're talking about is the bump out where the cars were. Incorporate public art in this space, whether through painting of bollards, a sculpture, or something else. And there is also a wonderful slide presentation of what they call midterm Pinecrest Greenway. A proposal to create a greenway stone path which would extend between Glade Drive and Fox Mill Road. This is walking. A detailed idea of how this could best activate the area while maintaining green space was developed and proposed. This included incorporating native species plants and information on the vegetation as well as the area wildlife. Additional area recreation uses were also discussed. Since this is a longer term project than the intersection improvements, it was decided that could be pulled out to be looked at separately from the Glade Pinecrest intersection scope of work, with the intent that the intersection improvements would complement the project. And it really is, it's stunning. I don't know if you received the PowerPoint presentation, but it really is, the vision is really something for this greenway, walkable greenway. Right, thank you very much. I just wanted to update you on another part of Reston, and that task force has been working on improvements there.
Jan, if I may, I think you said you thought that I had distributed those docs to the task force. I had not. I thought Jose was going to do it. So if you're expecting me to do it, I will do it after the meeting. But
Oh, that would be great. That
yeah.
would be great. Yes.
Jose, have you didn't distribute them, I don't think.
No, I hadn't distributed them, John.
Do you prefer to do the distribution or you want me to?
I'm happy to. I have another computer right next to me. I can send them out.
Okay, thank you, Jose. So
If
Jose
you-
will send it out. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could do both the white paper and the actual PowerPoint presentation, because that vision is really what we look at for Reston. I think you'll be excited.
So again, Jan, your hope, your anticipation is that the intersection project would be considered to be part of the transportation plan, while the greenway would be considered separately. Is that correct?
Yes. It looks as though that's what the consensus was for the Pinecrest Glade Working Group. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Does anyone have any other updates?
Yeah,
I can't
Walter,
share at this point.
can you hear me? It's Moira.
Yeah, hi, Moira.
Hey, and thanks, Tammy, for looking out for me, wanting to come in this meeting. I had three, maybe I'll share one at the end of the meeting, that I wanted to say. One is that I don't know how many people here have children in the school system, but there was an email that was sent out about a discussion or a meeting occurring, I think it's tomorrow night, about possible boundary changes. Of course, they don't want to freak people out. And I am going to plan on attending that. So I'll let you know what I learn, and whether or not that would impact Reston or what they're even discussing. So that's just something that you might not be aware of. Number two, you mentioned in your agenda, which I don't have in front of me, about sharing the revisions with the staff. And I wanted to ask if that could be done sooner rather than later, so we can see how all of these versions are going to fit in, and we would have enough time to go over that. I would hate for all of these things to occur like at the last meeting, and then we don't have a chance to kind of look and see how it all fits together.
All right. Thank you, Moira. And I've got good news on both of those. items. The second thing that you mentioned in terms of staff feedback, that's actually on the agenda. That's coming up, and we'll talk about, I believe, each one of these topic areas and how staff can provide feedback to members of the task force, or at least the leads in these areas, on the drafts as they have been circulated. So that's good. Hold that thought, Myra. That's coming. And then the second thing is on the school boundary adjustments. The good news is we have nothing to do with that process. And I can tell you that's the best news for all of us. Now, that said, anybody who individually wants to get involved in it, but
Oh, yeah, I knew that. I just wanted to let you know that the school board or the school is having that meeting. And we've talked about that in this meeting about how all this population increase is going to affect or what's going to happen. But I just want to let you know that there is a meeting tomorrow, I think it is.
No, good point, Myra. Yeah, thank you. And actually, yeah, it is true that school boundaries can, that hopefully do take into account growth, and that's one of the various elements of art that go into that art/science project of drawing school boundaries. So thank you, Myra.
Okay, thanks.
Any other updates?
All right, I'm going to interject verbally because I had my hand up.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. Charles, right?
Yes, Charles.
Yeah, go right ahead, Charles.
All right, so the public facilities is solo mio, and I spent a bit of time on it and have revised it. Jose sent it out to everyone. Last time it was sort of like a footnote thing. This time there might be some ideas that are bolder than have been done in the past, so it might be worth taking a look at it. However, I have zero input from any county agency, so if I don't get help from the county staff or anyone here, I may have to just start picking up the phone or hunting people down. And I'm serious. I mean, it's been suggested, find someone from the school system. I might have a connection in the fire department and get them to input. So there's no input from other agencies, but I have put a lot in there. And so it might be worth taking a look. And just broadly, it is designed to incorporate the principles that we talked about. And it talks about the idea that the county can do some things that developers can't, and have addressed some ideas in there, particularly where we have county facilities located, like in the North Reston area. So just letting everyone know, and but I won't, unless people want, I won't go through all the things in detail tonight, but it is out there for comment.
Charles, thank you very much. And I think, well, again, one of the things we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes, couple minutes maybe, is when we could expect feedback from staff on the different drafts. So hold that thought, Charles.
Right, and staff, differentiating between planning staff and the agencies that are influenced by this, they're different.
Yes, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, Jose, could you put the agenda back up there? And Charles, you make a good point. And one of the things I have talked with staff about is I do want to make sure that this task force gets the benefit of feedback from county staff before finalizing recommendations. And that is actually item 4B. So if the task force will just give me a minute here. Let's go to 4A real quick, and then we'll go right into 4B. So 4A is we're going to need to open up the documents, the process here in the near future in terms of getting community feedback more broadly on the drafts. Now, it probably makes sense and I don't know, there may be some of you that want to do this differently, but it probably makes sense to make sure that the draft that goes out to the community for feedback has, that you've had the opportunity of getting feedback from the county staff before making it a final working draft, if you will, to go out to the community. I know this task force has been working on a number of topic areas and chapters. It's been a lot of good discussion, but in terms of, we're getting to the point where I think the task force would benefit from getting feedback from the broader community on some of these topic areas before finalizing the recommendation. So does anybody have any other thoughts on that or other directions that they want to suggest at this point? Oh,
If I
see a
can
couple of
interject.
hands. Yeah, please,
Yeah.
Tammy, and then I see Lynn and John both have their hands.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
We just got community health and public facilities today, right before the meeting. So we haven't had a chance to go through that and suggest alterations, and we will be doing that, or at least I will be doing that. But I think we need to have a consensus that we're ready to give this to the staff, but then how, I hate to put that pressure on the staff, but they need to turn it around quickly because time's fleeting. And come January 1st or 2nd, when North County opens up for applications, we would like this product to be going before the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors for approval. There are significant changes in this plan, and hopefully they will be adopted and the Reston plan will be updated as far as the two things the county is really pushing, and thank heaven, equity and climate change. And we need to have changes so that we can achieve some goals that are meaningful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. Your timeline is music to my ears. I totally agree. That's why I wanted to have, and frankly, dedicate most of this meeting to a discussion of what needs to be done to get there. And Tammy, since you brought it up in terms of, let's just jump right to 4B. And St. Clair, I wonder if you could, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but if you could talk just a little bit about how county staff can provide feedback, at least verbal feedback in the areas that haven't received it yet or maybe are in process.
Thank you, Supervisor Acklin. Yes, I can do that. So again, in an effort to make sure we're continuously working with the task force, staff is currently reviewing the recommendation provided in the compiled topic list. So staff has already started reviewing, those drafts that had been proposed. One thing we ask, if there are any updates, please coordinate those through Jose so we can be aware. And if it's anything where they may be proposing any significant changes, any heads up would be helpful. Because as you know, we have staff that's devoting time to looking at these. So at this point, what we are working on is providing some high-level feedback. If there are any questions that staff has, any points of clarification, we are working to provide that level of feedback. Now, for the various topics that come at different times based on, how far along some of the topics, have been kind of worked through the task force. For example, I know the transportation was one. There was a lot of work done, and I think we got to see some of that language in an earlier process. So our transportation folks are working on providing some high-level feedback. We will be coordinating with Jose then to schedule meetings with the various topic area leads to have those discussions with staff to, again, kind of share those high-level comments, ask any questions, just to help things move forward. So these will not be formal comments at this time. We'll still have to wait to see what all is final drafted up, to work on that. But we will be working with the task force again to provide that high level feedback. Our goal is, based on, as we get some further updated language by, I would say late September into October, to be scheduling those meetings with the task force leads to have those discussions. Hopefully
Thank you.
that's helpful.
That's super helpful, St. Clair. Thank you. And I see there already were a couple of hands up. I don't know if John or Lynn, either of you want to address anything that St. Clair just said, or if you have a different question or issue.
So Walter, what I would
Actually,
like is just,
go ahead, John.
I was just hoping to confirm, you want to, did I hear you say you want 4B to proceed 4A?
Yeah, we're now talking about 4A. I'm sorry, 4B. And yeah, we switched it around a little bit because, I kind of took a hint after 3 different task force members brought up 4B. So,
Okay, so in fact, we'll get the input and review by county staff before we engage the community in a conversation.
yes, and I think,
John,
does
that
that
is-
make sense?
that is
to me?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood you correctly.
Yes.
My question was really, I think we're talking about the timing of everything, and we're talking about the linear process that we're going to go through to get to bringing this to the community for feedback. My question deals more with the how are we going to get community feedback, and I would like to just make a suggestion, Supervisor Alcorn, that your town hall meetings have been a successful venue for bringing things to the community. And I would like to suggest that you utilize that tool among others to bring this to the community.
Thank you, Lynn. You've been reading our notes.
Have I?
I don't know, or maybe just ESP. But no, that is actually, and we'll be coming back to the task force with a much more detailed plan
Okay.
for how public outreach will be done. But that's actually one of the main parts of the idea. It's basically a roadshow of
Good.
various town hall meetings. Now, one thing for everyone, all the task force members to think about is I would like to have with me as part of that probably 2 task force members, maybe more, and actually maybe as many as want to attend. But frankly, I would very much like to coordinate that with whoever would want to go on the roadshow with me, because obviously you have all put a lot of work into this. You've been writing it. And I'd love to basically have you, when appropriate and as you see fit, explain it, and frankly articulate why some of the things that are written in the draft are written that way. So I realize there have been a lot of authors of this document, and there'll be even probably a few more as we go forward. But if possible, be thinking about who and if you individually would be able and or interested in participating in that process.
Thank you.
Can
Thank
I
you,
ask,
Lynn.
may I ask a quick point of clarification?
Sure, Michelle.
When will the more granular, I can't say it now, level of comment and feedback occur? Because high
So-
level is very important, but do you see that occurring, the comments from staff where we're really looking at specific word choice? Does that occur after community outreach, or what's the thought there?
Well, frankly, that particular timing, I have not discussed with anybody. I don't think, I don't know if anybody else has thought it through. But my understanding in St. Clair, I think, you've actually done more of these than I have. Typically, there would be, if you will, verbal feedback provided by staff. But then once basically the drafts have been, if you will, finalized by the task force, then staff would go through and do a much more detailed analysis in writing. St. Clair, that's the idea, right? And that would occur over some number of weeks or maybe a couple of months. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. So again, yeah, right now we're trying to, work through as the drafts are being worked on. Once, yes, we get to a point where there is, I guess, what's deemed to be a final draft, then that's when we would go into our more, yes, thorough review and providing a more formal comment. So once we reach that point, that's when we kind of really set that timeline. And yes, I think it's been discussed. We'd probably be looking at a minimum of a 2 month period for kind of providing those formal comments.
So Michelle, just to follow up on that, I would presume that the task force would want to look at those detailed comments after staff has done that work. And so, Tammy, we're blowing maybe through the schedule that you laid out there, but hopefully not by too much. So yes, that actually would, I would presume, mean that the task force would get back together and discuss basically written suggestions by staff. Now, I would say, and this is one of the things I'm hoping for, that as staff reviews the drafts, if there may be areas where the task force says, oh, this has got to be silver, and staff says, no, it has to be gold, for example. It would be nice during the process where that does occur, if that does occur, that is just acknowledged. And staff and their professionality still would assist the task force in writing up the draft language so that it says silver, even if staff says, this is not our recommendation, we recommend, gold. That's how our process would typically work. And I would just ask that everybody be aware of that, where there are differences of opinion, if there are, between staff and task force. Michelle, does that make sense?
That does make sense. I mean, it seems if we finished a final by the end of September, during the month of October, promoted it and got input from the community, November, December staff reviews. I mean, we could get pretty close if this was very tight and we really stuck to a schedule. I mean, the obvious problem there is November and December include a lot of days where people are not in the office. So not at all insinuating that folks should work through any type of holiday or anything else, but I'm just wondering if there is a way to really tighten up our schedule to get to closer to what Tammy was talking about.
I have a question right there. I'm confused. I thought that the task force, we have 12 chapters, including 12, including the introduction. And I don't know of any that are outstanding. I know a few need tweaks, and Charles needs help with fire and whatever. I wasn't able to read through everything specifically, but I thought we were going to task force get our chapters together, task force look at the chapters and agree, and then staff take what the task force has presented as final. And by the way, folks, not to be ugly or the bad aunt, but this was supposed to be done in July. So we've had all of August to work on our chapters. So let's get those done in the next, so that by the next meeting, we have 12, what is going to go in our final document. And then the staff gets it, and that 2 months, we're into November, end of November. This is the middle of September right now. We need to give the staff a month to do this, and then we need to get it out to the public. Isn't that the way we're talking about it? That we get a product that's agreeable and then it goes to the public? Or is the public interfacing in this before the staff interfaces? I'm confused.
Well, Tammy, I think the way you just laid it out is a little different than what we
Okay.
had talked about before.
Okay, great. Whatever,
Yeah.
whatever paradigm you want to use.
Yeah.
But as far as the work of the task force, the members who have taken on chapters need to get those done as well as they can be done, and get those to what, the community or the staff?
I think initially it's the staff, and then
That's what I'm thinking.
to get verbal feedback and to have those calls later this month. And then, and I think what's going to happen, Tammy, is I think we're going to see a mix. My guess is there'll be a number of chapters that are fine, that, there's going to be very little additional to be done based on staff feedback. And there may be some others, particularly ones where, and I know this is a challenge for staff, but the ones that have basically reformatted the comp plan, where we're there is a, and frankly, I have a concern. I want to make sure that we're not leaving things out by mistake. I want to make sure that that the task force is empowered with the knowledge of what might not be in the draft but is in the current plan, and so that we're not inadvertently leaving things out. So anyway, that's my understanding. St. Clair, why don't you weigh in on this? Does that sound right to you? We're probably looking at a few of the chapters that are going to maybe take a little bit longer.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's just the complexity of some topics versus others. And just, I know the degree of work that's been going on with staff already. So yes, there may be somewhere, there might not be, but there might be somewhere staff may have some, more comments than others. Yes.
And Tammy, you raised an interesting point, and I guess it was Michelle that raised it. When would be the right time to go to the public, or should there be multiple times? I don't know. I mean, should it be after staff has done sort of its more thorough review and gotten feedback to the task force, and there's an opportunity to make any tweaks at that point and then go to the public? Or I don't know, Tammy, what are your thoughts? I mean, I would certainly go faster.
Well, fast if it's done comprehensively is a preference, because of the date. We want to get this to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors as soon as we can.
Right.
But from a layperson standpoint, the material in the plan is very, very complex and difficult to comprehend. And I think if you want to go a couple times, you're going to confuse people, and I don't think that's good. So I would prefer to give it to the staff first and have them review and say, oh, hell no, we can't do that. Or yeah, that's a great plan, or whatever. But to work out, and that's going to involve you, Walter, is putting in your stamp of approval, and then have it go to and I hope the community can find some things that we've forgotten or left out. That's the beauty of the collaborative process. But it is so complicated that I don't know a lot of people, like we're talking about before you got on about RA listening sessions. It's hard to get 4 people to show up for those. Hopefully the comprehensive plan will not be that. So
Thank you, Tammy. That's well said. And let's go back to Michelle. Michelle, I'm not sure if you were, do you have any thoughts about waiting until there's more thorough feedback from staff before going to sort of the public engagement process? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. I think I agree with pretty much everything I hear. I think also one thing it would be a good idea for all chapter leads to be reaching out to the public right now. By that I mean I'm very thankful that I ran into you on Saturday and was able to connect with Carrie Wilson at Cornerstones. And I think that she and I have already been talking about ways that we can get input right now, and that can help develop things further. Also, I would just like to highlight that we are in a public meeting right now. This is available to the public. That being said, I don't think that most people know about it. So I do not believe that this should count as full public engagement. But at the same time, we do have a number of non-panelist attendees who have been calling in pretty regularly. I would imagine that to some extent reflects those who are fully engaged in efforts like this. That being said, I think that it is incredibly important that we reach out to the communities that do not know that these meetings are occurring, and that we make sure that this really reflects the entire community. So all of that being said, I think that it would be great if we got as detailed feedback from staff right now on feasibility and on major red flags and what could work and what can't work. And then we present to the public in a way that can be easily understood, and they can, really get what we're trying to do. So that would require some sort of an overview document to go with it. So there's a little bit more work involved, I think, with reaching out to the public than just saying simply, here's a comprehensive plan, and not providing them with greater detail on how it will be implemented and what the goals are. So those are my thoughts. I think that if we could get detailed feedback right now and then really have a solid plan to present to the public after we got feedback, I think that would put us in the best shape.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And I see a few hands up. I'm now going to start respecting my own process and start calling on folks. So David Vanel, David, go, and then Jan, I see your hand next.
Thank you, Walter. A couple of points. First of all, Tammy, it was my understanding that when we ended the meetings in July, that's when whatever had been written was being turned over to the county staff to review. And correct me, I mean, St. Clair can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that was the time starting 1st of August and into September when the county staff was going to be reviewing everything. And so anyway, from that, it seems to me that first of all, on the public thing, it seems to me that the closer we get to a semi-finalized document, the easier it's going to be to present to the public, and then make the final draft to turn back to the staff to turn into regulation. Tammy, for example, gave me a lead, and I can't remember whether it was Tammy or Michelle said this, but for the people who are working on the various sections, I think it's a good idea to reach out at this point anyway. And in my case, Tammy gave me a lead to a nonprofit organization that basically is a clearinghouse for low-income housing. And the question I asked, sort of rhetorically asked Tammy in an email reply was, I wonder if this organization is aware of individuals or groups of individuals who they aren't reaching. And maybe, we could work on that, at least in the housing area. So I would hope that, first of all, that we would get the feedback from the county staff, at least in general terms. What do the chapter leads, what do they see as in a particular chapter? What needs to be emphasized? What needs to be reduced? What needs to be taken out? Et cetera, et cetera. And then I would propose that the chapter leads or the chapter participants be the ones to make those written corrections rather than lumping that all on staff to, write new verbiage based upon a, face-to-face interview with staff. Let the chapter leads redo the thing, re-edit the thing, and turn it back in as sort of the semi-final final. And I don't know whether St. Clair agrees with that or not, but anyway, those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, David. St. Clair, you want to add anything to that? Or?
Well, I just wanted to point out there was a question that they thought the staff review was going to start in July. Well, we still have not received, language for all of the chapters. So I think, in fact, that's why these additional meetings were scheduled. So I think maybe originally that was the intent for July. But again, we still have not received drafts for all of the chapters. So again, we need to get that information before staff can really even start providing comments. So that's why we're at where we're at now. And yes, I think the goal is when staff does provide that high level feedback that we're working on, the intent would be, that's why we've been meeting with the team leads. The intent would be for the team leads to kind of organize any updates or revisions that are made at that point to share with staff. It would not be staff making those changes.
Great, thank you very much, St. Clair. And David, I do like the term semi-final, by the way. I like that. Might use that again. So Jan, go ahead, go next. And then we had another hand up or two. Bill Penniman had his hand up. So Jan and then Bill. Jan? Jan, you're still muted. Think.
This was answered, but I think it's important for the staff to come back to the task force with their changes. And it looks as though that's a consensus so that we can see what's proposed. And then once we've got that, we go to the public and the public makes some changes and come back to the task force and integrate it and go back to the staff and then submit it. It's kind of public input. Yeah, that's kind of what I'd like to see.
All right, thank you, Jan. All right, and then let's go to Bill.
I think there's an important step that's being left out, and that is task force agreement. So far, we have pieces that have been written by as few as one or two people, and pieces that have been written by small groups, not all of whom are identified. And we've had re-presentations and maybe a draft circulated, but not a final one. At some point, we actually have to discuss these things, ask questions, and see if we have our agreement. And I think I would be very surprised if we could do 12 of them at our next September meeting. I think we have to allow for our discussion as well. And and then as far as outreach goes, I certainly agree with Michelle that we want to make sure we reach out to groups that aren't normally engaged. We we constitute the usual suspects of civic activists, but there are a lot of other people whose voices we hope we're trying to represent, but we should hear from them and engage them. And the other group is, frankly, the business community. Mark speaks up now and then, but he's trying to be careful not to say too much. But at some point, we really ought to solicit them, because they're the guys who will either build or won't build. They're the guys who may have differences of opinion, although I can't imagine it for the sections Tammy and I have written. Nevertheless, but in any event, I think we have more to do before we're really ready to go out to the public, unless we want to get the public input along the way. Anyway, some thoughts.
Bill, thank you for your points. Let me just, I guess it's not a technicality in terms of having the task force decide whether they support a particular section or approach. It's not a technicality. What do you think, when would be the right time? Would it be in terms to make sure to take the temperature of the task force on a particular chapter or section? What do you think? Maybe after the chapter or the topic lead has gotten feedback verbally from staff and then makes additional changes, maybe at that point, so before staff would, do the detailed analysis? I mean, what do you think? Or
well, I think getting feedback from the staff, at least at the high level, is very important. The sooner the better, and that doesn't need to wait for our discussions. But I think in terms of our discussions, I think there needs to be a clear delineation of these are the sections that'll be discussed at the next meeting, and this is the draft you're working from. And if you can send out questions or comments in advance, great. But otherwise, we're going to cover these 2 or 3 at the next meeting, or maybe it's 4. But it's going to be hard, even for the short ones. They might blow through quickly, but sometimes we only have outlines. Sometimes, and we're talking language that's supposed to control something. Anyway, I think we have another step in there. That's all.
Thank you very much, Bill. Let's go to Chris Daniel had his hand up. And I see David Gill and Lynn and Michelle.
So I've kind of got to agree that I thought part of my understanding was that staff might be looking at some of these sections, particularly considering we kind of pushed some votes on some of them through to make sure we had some consensus, if only not to overwhelm staff with having to review a lot of different sections all at once. So, I mean, if there's any way some of these sections that we seem to have a level of consensus on could get some staff review, it might be helpful, I think, from the sake of stress, asking for that kind of workload. Also, I think it's kind of a red flag review kind of situation too, because if there's stuff in some of these that is going to run afoul when it gets voted on, by the Board of Supervisors that can't make it past, I really would want to know. But, I don't want my understanding of rejection to come too late so that we're scrambling. So whatever we can do to help encourage some kind of look at this would be appreciated.
So Chris, yeah, what you just mentioned is actually what is happening. Like you said, for example, historic preservation, that's one you've been working with staff already, so there's already been some evaluation going on there. There's some other topics in affordable housing our staff's been, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. There has been some review that's going through. That's why we can provide the high level comments at this point, but there are still some topics that some either we haven't received drafts or they're very early in the process, so that's why some of them are going to take a little longer before staff will be able to provide that feedback.
Great, thank you both. David Gill next.
Yeah, I'll just keep my comments short. I actually echo some of what Bill Penniman was saying, because I think especially as in relation to the old RCIG corridor, there are a lot of property owners there who I don't think were as engaged maybe in this process as they would have been when we went through the original Reston task force, because in their mind, we went through that relatively recently, and that's been relatively settled. So to the extent we are changing what that original plan was done, I really would encourage trying to get some more feedback direct from those owners. I mean, yes, Mark and I represent business community interests, but there are a lot of property owners there who sort of assumed that the comprehensive plan was sort of baked between those two roads for the RCIG area. And, things like historic preservation, Chris, that you're working on, I'd like to make sure that we've reached out to a lot of those property owners that are now being designated under that guidance that maybe we haven't gotten in the past. And I just make sure that we build in some time for that. And to echo the point on the consensus, I'm not sure we have 100% consensus on a lot of these items at the task force level. And understanding when we really need to have that consideration, I think, is important. So maybe it is a check with staff first, and then bring it back to the task force overall. And I'll just leave my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Let's go to Lynn and then Michelle.
Oh, thank you, Supervisor Alcorn. I just wanted to comment on Bill Penniman's observation that I agree. I think that it would make sense before we bring everything back to the entire task force that we do have some input at a high level from staff so that we know at least that we're on the right path before we waste the task force time with items that may not be appropriate for consideration based on staff review. So I just think in terms of expediency, that it makes sense, just to, let's get the high level review from staff and then review in terms of the entire task force so that we know that at least at a high level, it has staff's blessing, review, and then we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Michelle.
Hi. So I would like to just state that I think it is a bit extreme to say that the business community has not had input in this. They have had ample representation on this task force. And in fact, unlike the neighbors and community, we are not paid to be here. And I just do think that needs to be stated because I'm sorry, but if there are parcel owners who are interested in this, they have the ability and they have the time to get engaged and involved, and they have the representatives already on the task force. To date, I am not sure that any have provided feedback in writing, certainly not to any chapter that I've worked on, but we have all had the opportunity to provide feedback in writing, on the phone, in meetings. I think that it is just quite frankly absurd that people could say that there has not been ample time for feedback. There simply has.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Are there any other hands up at this point? Don't see any hands, additional hands up. So let's look at the agenda. I think we've had some good discussion about 4A and 4B. There may be another point or two that's made in just a minute, if anybody raises their hand on 4A or B. I did want to bring this question on 4C to the task force. With everything that was just discussed, I would point out that the compiled document, basically nothing has yet been published on a website. So task force members have been seeing various versions, suggested text, and a number of different working drafts of the different topic areas. But that has, upon request, it has been shared with folks outside of the task force process. Jose has done that, but it has not been made generally available, like published on the website. My question is, when should that happen? And I think this might be separate from a proactive community engagement, whether it's targeted or to multiple areas of Reston. When are folks comfortable with having parts or the whole compiled section put on the website so that members of the public can look at it. Any thoughts?
Yes, I think it'd be good to have the staff review and then publish it. Giving the task force time to look over it quickly and then publish it because it's almost done at that point with our feedback.
Okay.
Hopefully we won't get into any lengthy discussions about it because that's going to mean months and months more of meeting about this. So I think that those are my thoughts. Let's get it to the task, the staff, let the staff do their turnover. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, we're going to finalize our sections so they'll be there next meeting, and then we can get more to the staff.
Great. Thank you, Jan. David, I see your hand up.
I basically concur with that. I think it's important that we have at least the feedback, at whatever level from the staff before, and then make those adjustments to the texts before we release it to the public. That I know some people might say, well, the public needs to be in there from the first, and frankly, the public is in there from the first, from the first day you started this exercise. So I think it's important that we have something that is, as we both said, semi-final before the public bothers to take a look at it.
Okay, thank you, David. I see, Michelle, is that an old hand up or do you have a new hand up?
No, I concur with Jan. I would also be comfortable, however, though, sharing a current draft because I think that if it has made it into this compilation, there's been, a good bit of thought put into it. So I'm comfortable either way.
Okay, thank you very much. And I see John Mooney and Tammy with hands up. John.
Thank you, Walter. Kind of putting together what a number of folks have said, I would say that I would like to see 3 steps before we publish it in a generally accessible way on the website. First of all, the staff high-level review, then the task force adjustments to those comments by changing, tweaking the text. And then we spoke of a third step a bit earlier, and that is where the task force votes on that document. So I would like those 3 steps prior to taking it to a broadly available publication.
Okay, John, thank you for making that very clear. Tammy.
Thank you. I would love our chart to be revised with the correct iterations, the correct links of what's most, the most current versions, and then another column that has staff. Staff has reviewed so that the task force members working on the chapters can have some clue as to where the staff is. Hopefully, I'm with David. My understanding is that August was going to be the staff's, working on looking at what has been written. Hopefully that's been done, as St. Clair has said. But, like public art, dude, that's simple. That can be passed. Historical, that's a beautiful job. Transportation, we're adding the part about Pinecrest, but that's a very complex document. But I think FC.'s been looking at that and has worked in tandem. So there's been a lot of cross-pollination here, but if we can have that column, so the staff members can let the task force members know where they are, that would be helpful to us. And then we may even need to have, I love that idea of splitting. We have 12 chapters, 3 meetings, 4 chapters per meeting, and just go through it when we're ready. Bill Penniman's on target. We need to, as the task force body in toto, understand what's in all the chapters and go forward. And we're going to have to probably, I hate to say it, have more than every other week, because there's 2 meetings in a month. That isn't going to work. We've got 3.5 months, right, before the end of the year. And the holiday thing, you can cross that off. So, and we're hoping that the D variant doesn't, spike up and cause problems with public meetings in person. So, we've got a lot of complications, but we need that column so the task force knows what the staff is doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. St. Clair, I want to put you on the spot again. Anything else you would want to say or clarify at this point? Does this approach, maybe summed up most succinctly by John Mooney, does that work for you? St. Clair.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
There we go. Yep.
Sorry about that. I think what I've heard is in line of what kind of staff has been planning, what we've already been working on, and how we plan to move forward. So, we'll continue to work with the task force again on providing that feedback. As was just mentioned, yes, there's some, again, transportation's been looking at that language. I think that's something they can come early. Public art is, yes, pretty straightforward. So there's some of the topics that, I think, very, very shortly staff will provide that feedback, and we'll continue to work on some of the, more complex topic areas as well.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. And Jose, I'm going to put you on the spot next. Does this make sense? Do you have any questions or suggestions?
No, I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. No, I think this is helpful, and I'm happy to coordinate with St. Clair and some of these section leads or anyone interested in some of these sections and getting them on the scheduled with staff sooner than later. I guess I'm getting some indication that getting that feedback is critical at this point.
Okay, very good. Very good. Now, before I see if there are any last comments or questions, I do want to note, and I'm looking at the chat, I see Lynn Brown posted a message. Noted, Lynn, thank you. I know all the panelists see that. Lynn made some comments about public comment and public participation in this process. So thank you, Lynn. Does anyone have any last comments? John Mooney, is that an old hand or is that a new hand?
I'm sorry, Walter. It's an old hand.
That's okay. That's all right. I thought perhaps it might be. Chris Daniel, is that a new hand?
That's a new hand.
Okay.
I just wanted to echo some of the other comments about how we seek public involvement, and that while this is a great conduit that we have with the fact that it's being streamed and people can access it, I think maybe we need to also consider an uptick in advertising this in whatever way we can, so that because we're going to start putting the rubber to the road here in these last few sessions, even if we choose even other avenues to solicit public comment, maybe we start highlighting this is, if you weren't attending previously to observe, maybe now it's the sessions you want to sit in on, because this is when we're going to start talking about things and it's getting closer to, really starting to make some recommendations. So we could also try to channel public input into this too, as kind of what Lynn was getting to. If we can try to find an avenue to make that a little bit more acceptable in the digital means.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. And Jan, you had your hand up?
Yes, I do. I just want to say that in addition to the town meetings, if we could have virtual going on with that, a lot of people may not be able to attend. Perhaps it will be shown on channel 16, but a lot of them may not be able to get to that or be concerned about the Delta variant and COVID. and decide that they really don't, they want the information, but they really don't want to expose themselves. So it's just an idea. If a virtual component could be added, I think that it would reach more people. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Jan. All right. So I think we've gotten through item 4. Any questions or comments before we wrap up without getting past 9 p.m., I would add. All right. I don't see any other hands up. Don't hear anybody. Going once, going twice. All right. Hey, everybody gets 44 minutes back on your evening. So please enjoy those. And we'll see each other again in a couple weeks. Thank you very much for everything everyone is doing.
And could I say one thing, Walter, before
Oh,
people leave?
sure,
For
Tammy.
the sections we got tonight, please give feedback to Michelle and to Charles. They need that so that they can be confident that what they're doing is as well done as the rest of us know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tammy. Good point. Okay. All right, everyone. Have a good rest of your evening, and we'll see each other again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Walter.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.